Zondervan presents Apprentice, Walking the Way of Christ by Steve Chalke. Read by the author.
Chapter 1. Journeying. A man once dreamt of leaving his home to go in search of the Golden City, which lay on the other side of a vast forest. His own life was tedious. He'd grown tired of his surroundings, responsibilities and relationships. No one in his town had ever been to the Golden City, but the tales of its size and beauty had been told for generations. Eventually, his desire to experience this wonderful place for himself became irresistible. So one morning, the man woke early and, after saying goodbye to his wife and young children, set out on his journey of discovery. The man travelled for many hours, slowly making his way through the dense forest that separated his own small town from the Golden City. He had no idea how long his journey would take or what might await him at his end, but his determination to keep going was constantly fueled by the inspirational stories he'd heard of his intended destination. Eventually, despite his great enthusiasm, he became overwhelmed by exhaustion. So finding a clearing, he settled down under a large tree to rest. However, not wanting to awaken disorientated or lose his direction, he took off his shoes and laid them side by side, pointing carefully in the direction he was travelling. Assured that he would now avoid getting lost, he closed his eyes and he fell into a deep sleep. But while he slept, two young boys out playing in the forest entered the clearing and stumbled across him. Seeing the man asleep and his shoes laying neatly beside him, they decided to play a trick on him. Silently, they crept closer to him, with the intent of hiding his shoes. But just as one of the boys picked them up and turned to retreat, he stepped on a dry twig which cracked beneath his foot. The man began to stir. Startled, the boy hurriedly dropped the shoes and with his friend fled. The man half woke, sat upright, and blearily looked around him, but seeing nothing, soon went back to sleep. Early the following morning, the man awoke, and carefully putting on his shoes so that they continued to point in what he thought was the same direction, he set off once more. He walked for the whole day until finally, as dusk fell, he came to the edge of the forest, and there before his very eyes at last was the Golden City. As he got closer, the man began to feel strangely at home. Things here were exactly as he'd imagined. It wasn't that the city was any bigger than his own, but just that he had a strong feeling of belonging, a sense of coming home. His eyes lit up as he walked past what he felt were familiar shops and houses. But best of all, he came across a very familiar street where he found a familiar house. He knocked on a familiar door and was greeted by a familiar-looking family. He smiled a deep smile because he felt at peace, and he thanked God that after his long and difficult journey, he'd finally reached his destination.